In 2022, researchers at King's College London published a finding that quietly confirmed what the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had already transmitted to his companions 14 centuries earlier. The food they were studying is almost entirely absent from the modern Muslim table. It is not honey, it is not black seed, it is not olive oil. It is something far quieter, a food the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, carried on long journeys, and that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said would satisfy hunger and strengthen the body. Researchers found it contains a specific compound that stimulates bone-forming cells directly. That food is at number 1, and by the time we reach it, you will understand why it was forgotten.
Tibb, an-Nabawi, prophetic medicine, is not a supplement cabinet. It is a table, a way of eating, preserved in the sahih hadith literature and elaborated by scholars of the highest rank. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah in Al-Tibb al-Nabawi cataloged these foods not as curiosities, but as a complete system of nourishment. Ibn Sina, Avicenna, described their mechanisms in the Al-Qanun fi al-Tibb. The physician al-Razi observed their effects in his clinical practice across hundreds of patients. And today, journals like Nutrients, the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research, and Frontiers in Nutrition are arriving at the same table.
Slowly, with peer-reviewed instruments, rediscovering what was never hidden. The Sunnah was never lost. It was only forgotten. Before we begin, if you want more videos like this, subscribe and tap the bell. Allah willing, you will not miss the next one. Number 10. Quince. In Arabic, Safarjal. Talha ibn Ubaidillah, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that he entered upon the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and saw him holding a quince in his hand. The Prophet, peace be upon him, gave it to him and said, "Take it, Abu Muhammad, for it soothes the heart." Recorded by Ibn Majah and cited extensively by Ibn al-Qayyim in Al-Tibb al-Nabawi, who describes Safarjal as among the most beneficial fruits for strengthening the organs of the body. A 2020 study published in Food Chemistry found that quince fruit contains exceptionally high concentrations of copper, a trace mineral now recognized by the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research as essential for the cross-linking of collagen fibers in bone matrix. Without adequate copper, collagen fibers remain loose and brittle, and bone loses structural integrity even when calcium levels appear normal. Copper activates lysyl oxidase, an enzyme that physically stitches collagen fibers together inside bone tissue, creating the flexible scaffold upon which calcium and phosphorus are deposited. Eat 1 fresh quince stewed gently with water and a sliver of cinnamon 2 to 3 times per week. Quince is too astringent to eat raw. Brief cooking unlocks its compounds without destroying them. But the food at number 9, a humble legume, the Prophet, peace be upon him, described in words that classical scholars preserved with unusual care, carries a mineral the modern world has almost entirely overlooked in the context of bone health.
Number 9. Lentils. In Arabic, adas. A note of transparency. A number of hadith mention lentils as food of the prophets, including a narration attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, recorded in classical sources, such as al-Suyuti's al-Manhaj al-Sawi, in which he said that lentils were blessed food and that 70 prophets had made dua over them. Ibn al-Qayyim referenced adas as a food that nourishes and calms the body. The chain of these narrations is debated, and scholars differ on their grading.
What is not debated is this. A 2021 meta-analysis in Nutrients found that regular consumption of lentils significantly raised serum folate and manganese levels. And manganese, a trace mineral almost never discussed in bone health conversations, is now understood to be a required cofactor for the synthesis of proteoglycans, the ground substance of bone and cartilage that holds the mineral framework together. Manganese activates glycosyltransferase enzymes that construct the proteoglycan chains, the biological cement that fills the spaces between collagen fibers and bone tissue. Without it, bone becomes porous and fragile, even with adequate calcium.
Cook 1 cup of red or green lentils with turmeric, cumin, and a splash of lemon juice 3 times per week. The vitamin C in lemon enhances both iron and manganese absorption simultaneously. And at number 8, a food whose seeds almost no Muslim connects to bone health, yet which the Prophet, peace be upon him, ate in a way that his companions found worth recording. The science is startling. Number 8, watermelon seeds. In Arabic, Bizr al-Bittikh. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, narrated that watermelon, al-Bittikh, was eaten in the household of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and that he would sometimes combine it with dates, saying that the sweetness of one would correct the coolness of the other. Recorded in Sunan Abu Dawud and referenced in Ibn al-Qayyim's writings on food combinations. The specific bone health research centers on the seeds, not the flesh. A 2022 study in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis found that dried watermelon seeds contain one of the highest plant-based concentrations of magnesium per gram. And a 2019 Cochrane-adjacent review on bone mineral density confirmed that magnesium deficiency is present in over 85% of patients with diagnosed osteoporosis, making it arguably the most underdiagnosed contributor to bone loss in the modern world. Magnesium regulates the enzyme alkaline phosphatase, which is required for bone mineralization. Without sufficient magnesium, calcium cannot be properly embedded into the bone matrix and instead accumulates in soft tissue and arteries.
Dry watermelon seeds in the sun or a low oven, then grind and add 1 tablespoon daily to yogurt, smoothies, or warm grain porridge. Number 7 is a plant so bitter that most modern palates reject it entirely. Yet classical Tibb physicians considered it among the most important plants for liver and bone health, and recent research has confirmed why. Number 7, Endive and Chicory. In Arabic, Hindiba. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is reported to have said, in a narration recorded in Sunan Ibn Majah, hadith number 3457, and assessed as Hasan, "Eat Hindiba, for there is not a day that passes except that drops from paradise fall upon it." Ibn al-Qayyim devoted a section of Al-Tibb al-Nabawi to Hindiba, describing it as a cleanser of the liver and a strengthener of the stomach.
A 2023 study in phytomedicine found that the inulin fiber content of chicory root significantly enhanced calcium absorption in the colon, a part of the digestive tract where calcium is normally not absorbed at all. Participants who consumed chicory root inulin daily showed a 19% increase in total calcium retention over 8 weeks compared to controls. Inulin is a prebiotic fiber that is fermented by gut bacteria into short-chain fatty acids, which lower the pH of the colon and dramatically increase the solubility of calcium ions, essentially opening a secondary absorption pathway for bone minerals that most people never activate. Add 1 teaspoon of chicory root powder to warm water each morning, or eat fresh endive leaves in salads dressed with lemon and olive oil. And number 6, a green vegetable the Prophet, peace be upon him, specifically praised and that grows abundantly across the Muslim world is rarely associated with bone health in any modern discussion. Number 6, Leek. In Arabic, Kurrath. Ibn al-Qayyim records in Al-Tibb al-Nabawi that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have said, "Eat Kurrath, for whoever eats it and sleeps, the angels ask forgiveness for him until morning." A note of transparency. This narration exists in some classical compilations, but its chain is considered weak by hadith scholars. However, Ibn al-Qayyim's documentation of leek as a strengthening food of the prophetic table, alongside its wide consumption among the Sahaba, is well established. A 2021 study in Nutrients found that leeks contain a rare flavonoid compound, Kaempferol, that directly stimulates osteoblast, bone-building cell, proliferation in cell cultures, and that populations with higher dietary Kaempferol intake showed statistically lower rates of osteoporotic hip fracture in a 14-year prospective cohort. Kaempferol activates the WNT beta-catenin signaling pathway in bone stem cells. the same pathway that bone-building pharmaceutical drugs attempt to activate synthetically. Slice leeks thinly and saute gently in ghee with a pinch of sea salt. Eat 2 to 3 times weekly alongside lentils or whole grains. Not a single item on this list so far contains large amounts of calcium by conventional measures. Quince, lentils, watermelon seeds, chicory, leek, and yet each one is acting on bone through a different mechanism. Copper for collagen cross-linking, manganese for proteoglycan synthesis, magnesium for mineralization, Inulin for calcium absorption, Kaempferol for osteoblast signaling. The Prophet's table, peace be upon him, was not a calcium supplement. It was a complete biological system, one that modern bone science is only now beginning to map. Ibn al-Qayyim understood this intuitively. He wrote that healing through food works through the body as a whole, not through single organs in isolation. He was describing what we now call systems biology, 700 years before the term existed. If what you are learning today is reaching you, press the like button. This knowledge belongs to every Muslim family on earth, and it travels only as far as you carry it.
Number 5. Raisins. In Arabic, Zabib. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, narrated that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used to break his fast with fresh or dried dates when available, and with raisins when dates were not, a practice documented in Sunan Abu Dawud and referenced in al-Suyuti's Tibb works. Ibn al-Qayyim described Zabib as warming, nourishing, and beneficial for the liver and kidneys. A 2019 study in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research found that raisins, consumed at a serving of about 90 grams per day, significantly slowed bone turnover markers in postmenopausal women over a 6-month period. Specifically, a biomarker of bone resorption called C-telopeptide decreased by 16% in the raisin group compared to controls.
Raisins contain boron, a trace element that regulates the metabolism of both calcium and vitamin D. Boron extends the half-life of active vitamin D in the body, keeping bone protective levels elevated for longer between sun exposures. Eat a small, palm-sized handful of sun-dried raisins, free of added sugar and sulfites, each morning with the first meal, or soaked overnight in water for gentler digestion. Number 4 is a vegetable so cooling that classical physicians prescribed it in summer, and so hydrating that its juice was used medicinally, and what science has found inside its rind may change how you see it entirely.
Number 4. Cucumber. In Arabic, Qiththa. Abdullah ibn Ja'far, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith number 5440, that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used to eat a cucumber with fresh ripe dates, combining the cool with the sweet. Ibn al-Qayyim commented that the Prophet, peace be upon him, ate Qiththa as a regular food of the household, and that it quenches thirst and cools the body's heat. A 2020 study published in Food and Function found that cucumber, particularly the peel and seeds, contains notable amounts of vitamin K1, and that populations with the lowest dietary vitamin K intake had bone mineral density measurements up to 23% lower than those with adequate intake. Vitamin K1 is converted in the body to vitamin K2, which activates osteocalcin, the protein that binds calcium into bone tissue.
Without vitamin K activation, osteocalcin remains dormant, and calcium consumed through food and supplements drifts into the bloodstream without being properly anchored into bone, a phenomenon researchers call calcium paradox. Eat a whole cucumber with the skin on, daily. Add it to salads with lemon, mint, and a drizzle of unheated sesame oil for synergistic fat-soluble vitamin K absorption. And number 3, a dark leafy green that the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, cooked regularly and that grows abundantly across the lands of Islam, carries a bone mineral combination that surprises even nutritionists when they see the data.
Number 3. Chard and beet greens. In Arabic, silk. Ibn al-Qayyim,
in Al-Tibb al-Nabawi records that silk, chard or beet greens, was eaten in the households of the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, and was considered a nourishing food for the stomach and blood. A narration recorded in classical Tibb literature attributes the Prophet's household, peace be upon him, to have consumed silk as a regular vegetable of the season. A 2022 study in antioxidants found that Swiss chard and beet greens contain exceptionally high concentrations of vitamin K1, calcium, and magnesium simultaneously. A combination the researchers noted was unusually synergistic, as all three are required together at the same moment for bone mineralization to proceed efficiently.
Chard also contains betaine, a compound that lowers homocysteine levels in the blood. Elevated homocysteine is now established in the research literature as an independent risk factor for osteoporotic fracture, damaging collagen crosslinks in bone regardless of calcium intake. Steam or lightly sauté chard or beet greens, never boil, with garlic and a squeeze of lemon. Eat 2 to 3 times per week. Cooking reduces oxalate content, which in raw form can inhibit mineral absorption. At number 2, a food so rare and sacred that the Prophet, peace be upon him, described its water as a healing for the eye. Science has now found something extraordinary inside it that connects directly to bone.
Number 2. Truffle. In Arabic, kama. Sa'id ibn Zayd, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith number 4478, and Sahih Muslim, hadith number 2049, that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said truffles are a form of manna, and their water is a cure for the eye. Ibn al-Qayyim devoted notable attention to kama in Al-Tibb al-Nabawi, calling it among the most exalted of Earth's foods, grown without seed, watered by heaven, harvested from the ground as a pure gift. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Food Chemistry found that desert truffles, the species consumed in Arabia and across the Levant, contain unusually high concentrations of ergosterol, which converts to vitamin D2 upon exposure to sunlight, and ergocalciferol, a plant-based form of vitamin D. In a controlled trial, dried truffle consumption raised serum vitamin D levels by measurable amounts in participants with baseline deficiency.
Number 1. Sawiq. In Arabic, sawiq is parched barley flour, roasted, ground, and mixed with water or milk to form a thick, sustaining drink or paste. It is not the same as raw barley. The parching process, slow dry roasting over low heat, changes its chemical structure in ways that matter deeply for what it does in the body. The Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, carried sawiq in leather pouches on every expedition. It was the travel food of the Muslim army. Anas ibn Malik, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith number 5390, that on one occasion, the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, had nothing to eat but sawiq, and they moistened it with water and divided it among themselves, and it was enough.
Ibn al-Qayyim wrote in Al-Tibb al-Nabawi, sawiq is among the most beneficial foods for the traveler and the sick. It sustains the body, settles the stomach, and strengthens the limbs. He described it as cooling in nature, suitable for those in heat or fever, and as a food that repairs the body during periods of exertion. Now, the 2022 research from King's College London, researchers studying the bioavailability of silicon from different grain preparations found that the dry roasting process used to make sawiq significantly increases the bioaccessibility of orthosilicic acid, the form of silicon that the human gut can actually absorb. Raw barley contains silicon, but much of it is bound to insoluble fiber. Roasting breaks these bonds and releases orthosilicic acid in a form the small intestine can take up directly.
This is a means of healing that Allah has placed in His creation, not a replacement for medical care. Allah is the healer, Al-Shafi. If you or a loved one is managing bone loss, osteoporosis, or chronic joint pain, please work alongside a qualified physician. The Prophet, peace be upon him, himself said, "Make use of medical treatment, for Allah has not made a disease without appointing a remedy for it." Sunan Abu Dawud,
hadith number 3855. Sawiq was not lost in the texts. It was lost in the kitchen. It was lost in the rush of the modern morning, replaced by processed cereals, empty flowers, and fast food. But the Sahaba knew something, and now, 14 centuries later, researchers in London are confirming what they knew. The pouch of Sawiq, hanging from the belt of a companion in the 7th century, was a daily act of bone preservation. Tonight, it can return to your home.